Madeline Reeves, and I am the founder and CEO of Foundry. We're a creative consulting firm that focuses on working with ambitious entrepreneurs that are mission driven in nature to help them start, grow, and scale successful companies. So, when I joined the collective, I was really struggling with the structure of my business. I had reached a point where I was very burned out, and I was really trying to figure out a new way of operating that was better aligned for my personal well being. I had built my business off of like what other coaches told me I should build or what my team wanted it to be, as opposed to really being centered in myself and building a company that put my well being first. And as I was kind of searching for answers on that, I stumbled across Jada's book, and somebody gifted it to me actually, and I think that really opened my door mentally, that there was like a better way that I could be building that put my well being first. I had never thought about that, believe it or not, and from there, the things that I started to recognize I needed to do was restructure my team, restructure my services offering, and really rebrand the way that we were doing things. And so I had started a little bit of that work prior, but I think that the biggest impact that I got kind of as soon as I joined the collective was a reckoning that like I had a lot of the answers as to what I needed to do. And a lot of it was letting go of relationships that weren't serving me anymore, like people who were on my team or clients I had been working with. But I was afraid to part ways. And so I felt like when I joined the collective, I got this really like wise counsel of women who had my back and were able to, affirm what I kind of already knew to be true, but help give me the confidence to make those hard decisions. I think for me, one of the challenges is of joining any space like this is figuring out if I'm going to be in company that is operating at a similar caliber. I've joined a lot of different groups for female founders in the past, and often been in a more advanced season in my business, both in terms of like size and scale and the challenges that are being faced. And so while I know that like the struggles or the strategies that I bring to the table are helpful to other people in the room, when I hear about other people's stuff, I'm like, oh, I've already solved for that, or I've already navigated that. And so, while it's comforting to know you're not alone, you're like, oh, well, I'm not really gaining a lot from this circumstance or this situation. And so, and part of that is also a personal problem, that when you are somebody who does a lot of leading and facilitating inside your own business, you can oftentimes show up in these spaces and switch into coach mode and like start to, be leading the room as opposed to receiving from the room. And especially if people are not at at a business level where I've got something to benefit or learn from, it's really hard in mastermind settings to feel like I'm receiving. And so that was a hesitation. It was really important to me to like know the caliber of women that I was going to be aligned with. And I also didn't want like a bunch of the same. Like there's a lot of masterminds that are like, it's all therapists, it's all coaches, it's all, agency owners. And I'm in groups like that. And again, I like I love to study business. I'm fascinated by people's operating models. And I think we actually, just because we're not working in the same industry doesn't mean we can't learn from those experiences. And so what I really liked about the collective was the fact that you guys did a really good job of surfacing in advance. Like these are the sort of humans that are going to be here, and like gave me that booklet so that when I was coming to the first session, like I had a chance to like go research people on social media, go look at their websites, get a feel for like the work they were doing. So one, I felt like, okay, I'm in a room with my peers. And two, I kind of had a little bit of an understanding of like the kinds of people I was going to be working alongside with. So one of the biggest results that I received was a lot of clarity around the things that I needed to do to restructure my company, especially as it pertained to my team. And I felt like I got a lot of permission to say no, which was really, really important. Like, no, that relationship doesn't serve me. No, I don't want to, work with that person anymore. No, I don't want to, hold this big year-end event because I don't have the resources and it's not coming together in a way that feels aligned. And really to hone myself in on like what was my most important priorities for not just the business but for myself. One of the things that I really took away is the VIP process of really identifying like three important projects that I'm going to work on a quarterly basis, and I carry that forward now in terms of the way that I mentally plan. And I think the big thing that I learned after doing that a couple quarters is like I typically bite off a little more than I can chew. And so, it was interesting to be at the more recent retreats and see people make the same mistakes that I did, which is like, here's 9 VIPs for the first quarter, right? And so giving myself permission to like slow down so I could do the work well was really important. And then I also would say in that VIP process, I now by de facto ensure that one of my VIPs is about me. So for example, like last quarter, the VIP that was most important in that list was that I needed to get grounded and I was moving. And so like I had a very clear sense that like that was equally important to what I was doing in my business. And I think that if I hadn't made that a VIP, I would be still feeling really scattered like a month and a half after my move, but I'm feeling really grounded and settled because I knew that that was like one of my big priorities for the quarter, and it was equally important as what I was doing in my business. One of the moments I really felt like I started to see a turnaround in my business was at our most recent retreat. And I had the opportunity to do a couple things. One was to look back at my VIPs over the last quarter and see what I had accomplished, and seeing the ways in which, I had made decisions at the previous retreat to let certain relationships go and to really start changing the ways in which I was operating. And case in point, I was at the next retreat meeting up with a new client who happened to also be in Walnut Creek for dinner. And so I really felt this like very full circle moment that day of like, here I am setting my vision for the next quarter as to what is going to come through. When I joined the collective, it was a little bit of an intense season in that we hadn't closed a new client in like 6 months. And pretty soon after, when I started to make these energetic shifts, new clients started to close to sign up. And we had like 3 new clients sign on that quarter. And so then there was like this really beautiful moment of having dinner with that client in Walnut Creek, feeling like really clear as to what my vision was for the months ahead, and like also feeling like I had people I could go to that, if things, because it's not a matter of if issues arise, it's like when the next issue arises, I'm going to have people I can talk to about that. And I think for me, it was really, really beneficial to know that those were people outside of my business as opposed to inside of my business too, because I feel like the level at which I'm going to get honest and true supportive answers is really different if they're coming from people who don't depend on my business to pay for their well-being and things like that. The main thing that I see as a huge difference about the collective is the quality and caliber of women and the sort of things that we were able to get really vulnerable in and dive into quite deeply. So case in point, we talked not just about our businesses, but about our personal lives. And, I heard women in this group talk about grief, talk about the changes in their marriages or the ending of their marriages, about the hardships and struggles of balancing motherhood and being an entrepreneur in a way that had a lot more depth than I've ever had in other kind of community style conversation about those things. And I think that has to do with the space that is created. The connection between these women like feels pretty sacred. And I think that one of the things that Jadah and her whole team does incredibly well is holding space that feels like this really sacred container where all of us, we would talk about as soon as we walked in the room, like you could, even if you'd been like one time when I was coming to the retreat, I like missed my flight and slept in the airport and like had this whole rigmarole of like getting there. But the second you walked into China space, your whole body just kind of goes, because it's like everything has been taken care of. There is nourishing snacks. There is a beautiful gift waiting for you. There is this curation that's happening. And especially for us women who are always in charge and always making those decisions and always deciding what's happening, to have people be like, no, you like don't have to mental load at all in this moment. Like all you need to do is show up and like be present was really, really powerful. And I think that's the other thing is like it's really challenging as a CEO to dedicate 3 days, because there's always other work you could or should be doing. But like what I felt was so different is the way in which that Jada and her team showed up was so intentional for us that I felt very beholden to showing up with that much in presence and intention for her and the work that she was doing for us. And I can't say that about other masterminds that I've been a part of, and I think there's a difference when it is in person. I would really, recommend that people who have done a bunch of virtual masterminds and have not, felt like they're getting things out of it. Because let's be clear, when we're on Zoom, it's very easy to be distracted or to only be half focusing. I struggle with that a lot. And so to be in person and to dedicate the time really led to a different level of results.
The best thing that I experienced was, all of the insights I received and the affirmation I received. Like to me, this is sprinkled out through the program, but case in point, it's like I have a journal that I carry around that has tucked in me like all of the like words of affirmation or thoughts that people shared on little note cards from listening to my heart seat, or I still am connected to all of these women on social, and we DM all the time and like get to talk about and support each other. I gained some really powerful friendships with, especially with one woman in particular. And now we've built a partnership between our two businesses that has been really impactful. And we both work in kind of like the communications and digital marketing space. And so it's been really powerful for me to like mastermind and work with her on projects. And we're going to even support a client together in an upcoming project. And so that's been really incredible. And I also think that the other big thing that I really received was the ability to receive, the ability to believe that I was deserving to be cared for and like heard and like supported. Like I can't think of an experience in my adult life where I've gotten that from a group of women. Again, I really, when I'm in a lot of those group settings, I'm often the one in charge. And so it was really nice to allow my brain to switch modes and just be in a room where I was being heard and receiving from others as opposed to having to just give of myself all the time. I think what I really was impressed by was the level of knowledge and resource sharing in this group. Like these women are my kind of women in the sense of like I had a need at one moment for to be connected with the business broker, but it's really hard to find business brokers who are women, let alone know how to work with women-owned companies that are digital in nature. And like this room was so full of women who are like, "Oh, I have that for you." Here is an introduction email, like right as soon as you ask for it, or I have a template for that, no problem. Oh, I've got a contract for that, no problem. And so for me, like there was all of these emotional benefits, but I know that to this day, like if I was like, oh, I need to find a professional for that, or I need to create a resource for that, or I need an example of that any one of these women who had it would not only be willing to share that with me, but also like would give me 10 or 15 minutes of her time to be like, here's why I built it this way, or here's why I'd recommend this person. And that's incredibly valuable because especially as a female founder, there's still a lot that doesn't exist for us in the world, or that we have to kind of like go behind the scenes to find the right people or the right resources for. And so it was really fantastic to just be like in the right room with the right people to make those things happen, regardless of what that resource or need was. And also, it was really affirming because I'm that kind of person, but unfortunately, I haven't worked with enough people who are like that in my past. And so it was really cool to again see that happen and be like, oh, I'm in a circle of people who play this game like I do. I feel really clear about the ways in which I am leading the vision for my company. I feel like I was a little bit lost when I came to the collective and a little bit out of love with my business. And so I feel like I've gotten a lot clearer about my purpose and role and how it's changed in this season.
I've stepped out of being like a day-to-day doer in my business in a lot of ways and have a whole team now that is in charge of running the business and keeping it moving forward. And I've actually like elevated into this new era of my leadership, which is like, yes, this is one of my companies and this is how I want it to work. But I've also let go of the belief system that I need to be the one to do all the work or solve all the problems for it to be done well. And I've had that mentality in the past, but I think that it was lost along the way because I had invested a lot of time and energy and money and coaching into people who weren't rising to the occasion. And so I think I got a lot of permission to like hit the reset button and sit with myself and say, no, this is the company I want. And this is how I'm going to go about creating it. And I'm not going to settle for something less simply because this is like the people I have. And what I really appreciate about that knowing is that like if things ever feel off track again, I know that I can do that again if I need to. And I also gained a lot of stories like that. Like I had been through 3 really, really hard years in my business and in my personal life. And it was really affirming to be surrounded by other female entrepreneurs who were senior enough in their experience of entrepreneurship that they could be like, oh yeah, I went through some shit too. Like I've seen some shit too. And so I didn't feel like I had failed or that I was alone in those experiences. I felt really seen and heard and validated, and actually like had a deeper belief in my own abilities because of the fact that I was in this kind of like rare air of like women who had not only been through those things, but then made it out the other side and made their businesses work differently as the result of what they'd gone through. I think that the entrepreneur who is very overworked and overwhelmed would really benefit from this, especially somebody who's trapped in the cycle of either thinking they have to do it all well in order to get the work where they want it to be, or they struggle to hire the right people because they don't even have a clear picture as to like what are the jobs to be done. I also think somebody who is in a season where they can't quite clearly see like what is the next 1 2 3 5 years of this business going to be, and they want a chance to like step all the way back and into themselves and really move forward from that place. Like I think that oftentimes what happens is like in the early stages of founding a company, we kind of become our business, and as a result it's really hard to like be in touch or in tune with what we actually want. And so it can be really really helpful to have a space like this to see yourself as separate from the company and really question like what do I want versus where is the company at and where does it need to go, so that you can start making the changes to bring those two things in alignment, and also to continue to nurture yourself and have a life outside of your company. I think before this work, I really thought that like my company was my identity and that, the success or failures of my company were defining me. But I have really grown in the past year to focus on nourishing myself outside of my work. And that's been hugely important in allowing myself to not only like step away more and spend time with my family and on hobbies and taking care of myself, but also on recognizing that like there could and should become a day where it's like I'm not in my business all the time. That was actually the goal. And now I've set up a life where like that actually happens. There's a lot of women I think who start businesses because we want to find a sense of integration or harmony in our lives that isn't happening in the corporate world. Like, case in point for me, like I had this dream that like I could run a business and also be a mom who like dropped my kid off at school or like volunteered in their classrooms or like was able to make them lunch every morning, just was present in their lives, was done with work when they got out for school, and had a summer schedule that allowed me to play. Like that was not my life before this program. It is my life now. Like I volunteer every Fridays. Like the weeks I have my kids, I'm done with work typically by the time they're home from school. And I believe that was possible before this. And this program really gave me permission to reprioritize myself as much as I was prioritizing my business. One is not more important and one is not better. Like I think there's a lot of women in business who like
have a little bit of a running competition with the stay-at-home mom crew. And it's like, no, like this is I do what I love all day long, which includes both of those things. And that's really important to me. I would recommend this program, and I already have to many people. And I really, really think, again, for those who have tried other masterminded environments but just aren't getting the depth and the connection that they're wanting, or are still kind of struggling with, issues that are bigger than the business that really have to do with yourself as a leader, I would highly recommend this program.